The Capitol Police officer that shot and killed Ashli Babbitt on January 6th has been the topic of discussion amongst many circles about how it happened, what happened, and this and that. There's been some threats, there's been things thrown his way. But the one thing that we didn't always know was his identity, his face, his name to go with it. So in an exclusive interview with Lester Holt on NBC News, he did just that. So he identified himself and he talked about some of those threats and about why he's coming out now and showing who he is. So let's listen to that first piece here.
He's been the target of threats. Could you give us the nature of some of those threats?
They talked about, killing me, cutting off my head, very vicious and cruel things.
Racist things?
There were some racist attacks as well. It's all disheartening because I know I was doing my job.
Given the nature of the threats that you describe, do you have any concern about showing your face and identifying yourself?
Of course I do. That is a very vital point, and it's something that is frightening. I believe I showed the utmost courage on January 6th, and it's time for me to do that.
So that was Lieutenant Michael Byrd of the Capitol Police Force, and he talked about some of those threats and some of the things that have happened with him. And as we know, he's been the topic of discussion when it comes to even using Ashli Babbitt as a reason for more illegal activity, more insurrectionist activity towards the government, or just general distrust of the current administration. So as he pointed out how he needed to show a little bit more, I guess what he saw is courage to come forward and show his face, but also to argue the points about what he experienced and what he saw on that day and why he did what he did. So let's go to that second clip about what happened in the moment when he shot.
I had been yelling and screaming as loud as I was, please stop, get back, stop. We had our weapons drawn.
There's a gun! Byrd, only his hand and gun visible, targeted a figure trying to climb through a window. He fired a single fatal shot, hitting Ashli Babbitt. We see your arm out there for a considerable amount of time. Were you wavering?
I was taking a tactical stance. You're ultimately hoping that your commands will be complied with, and unfortunately they were not.
And what did you think this individual was doing at that moment?
She was posing a threat to the United States House of Representatives.
So we did have a lot of discussions about what he did, and people thought it was wrongdoing. But just in case those of you didn't realize this, NBC News did also report that Byrd has been cleared of any wrongdoing by the Justice Department and the Capitol Police. In announcing their decision not to charge him, the Justice Department said in April that investigators had examined the video, physical evidence from the scene, autopsy results, and statements from the officer involved, as well as other officers and witnesses. They went on to say the investigation, this is part of their statement, the investigation revealed no evidence to establish that at the time the officer fired a single shot at Ms. Babbitt, the officer did not reasonably believe that it was necessary to do so in self-defense or in defense of the members of Congress and others evacuating the House chamber. That's what federal prosecutors said in their statement, which is a little oddly worded, but the idea was they didn't find that he did something wrong in that decision, to put it that way. And like he didn't think and kind of unknown backhanded note that, so in case that statement was twisted in a way to you guys, they found that he did no wrongdoing in that decision.
Yeah, so now, first of all, should we have known who did the shooting? Of course, we live in a free country and the police work for us. And so when any policeman does a shooting, eventually we have to know what his name is and why he did the shooting and what the conclusion of that investigation was. We are perfectly consistent on all of that. Now, should he have shot? Well, we often say on this show, and I say myself 1,000 times, for God's sake, remember when they used to say, freeze, put your hands up. And they would give people an opportunity to put down the weapons, step away, comply with the orders. And said, now they don't do that anymore in 99% of the cases, certainly the ones we cover, let's put it that way, to be fair, right? And you see unarmed black men and children being killed nonstop. Tamir Rice was shot in 2 seconds. John Crawford was shot in 2 seconds and never given an opportunity. Oops, it turns out it was a toy gun. Oops, turns out it was a gun, a BB gun that Walmart was selling that he was actually shopping for. We didn't bother asking questions. Now, is this a similar situation? Put aside the racial component here. Did the officers give them enough chance to comply? Are you kidding me? I mean, they went through how many different gates How many doors did they break? How many windows did they break? How many officers did they trample upon and endanger the lives of, and take weapons off of their bodies? And then even at this is the last stand. If they all pour in there, they're rioters, there's hundreds of them. If they all pour in there and they got zip ties and they got nooses and they're chanting about killing people, including the Republican vice president, who we now know was only minutes from being caught by the rioters, who were chanting "Hang Mike Pence" as they were coming in. They had 1,000 opportunities to comply, 1,000. And if they had gone through those gates, God knows what would have happened. And so it's Ashli Babbitt was the first to break through, but it doesn't really matter who it was. If it was another rioter who had broken through first, that's who would have gotten shot. And these are the same people, these right wingers who say, "Oh, just comply with the police and you wouldn't have any problems. You wouldn't have any problems at all."
Easy.
Oh, us, we're not gonna comply. We're gonna disregard their orders, beat the crap out of them, and look to kill people. They shot us. Do police do that? Yeah, they do it a lot quicker if you weren't white and you weren't a right winger.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, literally, there's police officers where they'll just see a teenager in a hoodie and say that they're afraid for their lives, right? I mean, if there's a police officer that had a reason to say they're afraid for their lives, right? Being afraid of a mob that's literally breaking through a door that is chanting about hanging people, that is definitely a life-fearing situation. And you also have to look at the fact that he only fired one shot. I mean, in my own city of Minneapolis, just a few weeks ago, there was somebody who was killed by police officers who was parked in a parking garage, just parked sitting in a parking garage, and they fired countless shots into his vehicle as he was sitting there with another person. And so those police officers say, "Oh, we had to because this, that, and the other thing," and we still don't have details about that. But it's hard to think that when these right wingers are trying to justify that killing of a black man in Minneapolis and then turn around and say, "Oh, well, Ashli Babbitt," but he only fired one shot. It's not like he unloaded an entire, clip. It's very, very dishonest. But ultimately, it reveals that behind their hypocrisy is really just perfectly consistent racism, right? Their issue is that a white woman was killed by a black police officer. That was their central issue. That same thing happened in Minneapolis, where when a white woman was killed by a police officer in Minneapolis, the conservatives here were upset. But when you have George Floyd being killed by a police officer, being literally murdered, they turn around and try and justify it, even though George Floyd wasn't really doing anything that would have warranted, the police going in, really.
I mean, okay, so so many good points there, because I'd forgotten about that story of the woman in Minneapolis. I think it was Minneapolis specifically, where the police officer killed her. It was a very similar situation where he absolutely acted irresponsibly and quickly and all that. It's just the reaction seems so much different. That's like, I remember noticing the exact 180 reaction to this, and I was like, I just wish the concern was there for every person who was in this victimized position now, in sitting in their car or just doing nothing, or if there's some misunderstanding and then suddenly shots are fired and their life is gone. So, but I do want to point out one more thing about this interview with NBC that Byrd did have, because Donald Trump has been talking about him, and we know about this. He's been consistently talking about what he did and what he should have done, and joining this chorus of promoting Ashli Babbitt as this martyr. But I do want to show what he did say about those types of things coming from a former president, because that's some serious accusations there. Let's listen to his response to that.
Former President Trump has talked about you and this incident. He says she was murdered. What does it feel like to hear that from a former president?
Well, it's disheartening. If he was in the room or anywhere and I'm responsible for him, I was prepared to do the same thing for him and his family.
Would you have his back today if you were so assigned?
I sure would, because it's my job. I do my job for Republican, for Democrat, for white, for black, red, blue, green.
There's a lot of people that didn't know who this guy was. He's been on the force, I believe, 28 years, almost 30 years to that point. No one knew his name, but now there's a lot of knowledge about him, and suddenly you know everything about him and what his beliefs were. They're speculating whether or not this was politically motivated. Not sure how something can be politically motivated in the middle of a riot that's going on. And your job is to protect people that are literally right behind him as the last barricade has been set there at that window. We saw the glass being broken. I'm not sure how many more threatening signs he can take in. And he did point out that his training told him to do such a thing like that. So he did take one shot. And in my opinion, as you guys also pointed out, that was one shot. When someone is afraid, and especially when we see police officers, when they're afraid and they feel like they're in a position where they're now in the last line of defense, and there was also fewer cops there because of COVID-19, and there was a thinner amount of people that could tell him what was going on and what he could do in that moment. Man, I'm surprised only one shot went off, I gotta be honest, because there was other people behind her.
100%. There's no question it's because they were right wingers. I guarantee it. In fact, Ben made such a great point. I just looked it up to refresh my recollection here. You remember Christopher Dorner? He was the African-American guy who had targeted police in LA, and there was a huge manhunt after him, right? And in the midst of that, the LAPD thought that he was in a car. In reality, it was two women, 47 years old and 71 years old. They don't look any like Christopher Dorner was a big guy. These are two tiny women. You know how many times they shot the car? They fired over 100 rounds. They didn't even look inside because they look nothing like Dorner, right? They're like, who cares? It kind of maybe might look like the car that he was driving. They put 100 rounds into that car.
Jesus.
This guy shot only once, as there's a literal mob of right wingers chanting about executing politicians whose job it is to protect, that it's Bird's job to protect. He fires one shot, they're like, oh, right wingers like, how dare you? Did you know police do shootings in America? Did you know police do shootings? It has finally affected us, and now we are aggrieved, okay? Great, well, okay, fine, no problem. Instead of looking to murder that police officer, I thought Blue Lives Mattered. But I mean, like, isn't that amazing? The guys who were like, Blue Lives Matter, and they got the flag with the blue line and the American flag and all that stuff. They're like, kill the black cop, kill him.
Qualified immunity, how about that?
Yeah, they're talking about beheading him. They're talking about beheading him. But look, if you actually mean that, hey, you're upset by this because you thought that police should be more careful, well, I got good news for you. You can go join Cory Bush and other progressives in doing police reform. Theoretically, some of the Republican senators are working on it now. And in reality, of course, what they're doing is slowing things down so nothing ever gets passed and watering everything down so that it's totally pointless. And that's what the job of the Republicans is. But if you're actually upset and you're not full of crap, which you know all the right wings are full of crap. They're all on this issue. None of you mean a goddamn thing. None of you want police reform. You just want black people shot, not white people shot. And you know that. And you want left-wingers shot, but not right-wingers shot, right? So if you actually want a police reform, here's a great way to do it. Qualified immunity. That's what Cory Bush, a Just Democrats fighting for. You get rid of qualified immunity, and then officers would be civilly liable, and then you could sue Michael Byrd. I don't know that you'd win, but you could sue him. And then he would personally have to pay. The guys who put 100 rounds into the wrong car during the Dorner chase, yeah, LA had to pay $4.2 million. Jayar and I live in LA, we had to pay that money, but the cops had to pay nothing. They're like, who cares, whatever, no big deal. We almost murdered the wrong people. No consequences, okay? So you wanna get rid of qualified immunity? Yeah, I didn't think so, right wing. That's exactly what you are. Entirely 100% full of crap.
Yeah, I mean, that's just 100% correct. And I mean, I really want to double down and point to, they say it's politically motivated, right? What do they mean when they say it's politically motivated? They mean the same thing when they talk about refugees coming from Afghanistan. They're saying, oh, they're gonna be Democratic voters. Like, we just caught them on the game, right? Like, people have caught up on the game and they're like, okay, well, you're obviously racist. And so now, instead of saying black or brown, they're just saying Democratic voters. And they're assuming, I don't know anything about that police officer's politics. I have no idea what his politics are. But these Republicans are so eager to just equate, any person of color with being a Democratic voter, and then using that as some sort of justification for their just absolutely rancid racism.
Yeah, last point here, because Ben made another great point there. How do you know that those Afghans who helped our military and are generally culturally conservative are going to be Democratic voters? You know why you think they're going to be Democratic voters, because Republicans hate Muslims. So as soon as they come in, you'll tell them, we despise you. We don't want you to be in this country. You're brown, you're Muslim, we hate you. And it's because you're going to turn them into Democratic voters with your hatred and bigotry. Just be honest about it. Just put the hoods back on and be honest, that's all.
They do when they can.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.